Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 26th, 2022 meeting of the Rotary Club of Raleigh. I'm Tom Packer, your president for this year. Welcome. As we always do, we'll start with an invocation before we proceed. Tommy, would you like to come up and do that?
Thank you, President Tom. You know, bow your heads, we'll offer an invocation. God of the universe, since we are not conscious enough to fathom your ebb and flow, help us then to bring our best efforts to what we can know, to love our friends and family, to treat our employees and fellow workers fairly, to seek justice, to help those in need, to be the best that we can be, and to live by our four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Amen. Amen. Could you please rise for pledge? Yeah, he is here. Oh, yeah. We gotta make sure we have them right. All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, beautiful for spacious and for ever ways of praise. For purple mountains, majesty, fruited white. His grace on thee, from sea to shining sea, our gate and our wife. That's so great. Thank you. Before we get to our guests, wanted to welcome a new guest to the world. Our Paul Corsa and his wife on had a baby boy the past few days with Warrington. So congratulations to them. Also, I just putting the slide together for the meeting. I had a Saturday off. My wife Leslie was on a short weekend, and so I had a little free time. So took my dog for a walk, but struck me the weather was beautiful this weekend, and we live in such a beautiful area. I don't know how many of you know Raleigh's only waterfall. This is not too far from where we live, but if you haven't been there, there's a beautiful sandy beach right there, and this is an old mill that creates a waterfall from Crashing Creek. It's the Lassiter Mill waterfall, and it's just a gorgeous spot if you haven't been there. It's right behind Root Elementary School, and then oh, sorry. Then I went to. We're lucky to have the State Farmers Market here in Raleigh. It was in full swing first weekend of fall. And I ended up by first going to one of the best restaurants in town, State Farmers Market restaurant, where of course I had fried pork chops with 2 vegetables on the side, which were rice with gravy and macaroni and cheese. And we go into a restaurant where the waitresses call me sugar and the waiters call me Boston. So. So before we get to this, I'll just remind you now. Remember, we have our the buckets, the Dementia Alliance buckets on the table. If you didn't bring cash with you, there's Monopoly money on the table. You can write $1 or $2, whatever you want, and put it in. But it's for the North Carolina Dementia Alliance to raise funds for them. We haven't had Charlie Upshaw here. He's been down south. His son has been going through some military training, I know. He and his wife have been down there, but starting, you want to see if we have any happy dollars. I mean, not too many victories over the weekend for football except for one, but, anything, go ahead.
Well, offering for my son, when the hair doing that, getting hardening school and my wife trying to listen to it, and I did too. It's a good for my son, every morning. Good home.
And also the Sign for Joy is a nonprofit here that has been doing as the organization. And if you go to Sign for Joy, they're an online auction. So, I love this nonprofit. They hire women coming out of something and teach them how to make a living by teaching them how they level good for men and women and things like that. So, I'm going to tell you.
So here's the $10 for step 3. He went back to Davidson College, finished his degree, graduated, and was inducted into the Sport Hall of Fame out there in the retired security. All in one day. Wow.
Well, if we're giving $1 for punching, I'll give $2 for my game time. They don't always win, so I better take advantage of it. $2 those weeks is about what we're worth, but this week was a good one. So we'll take it. I got to give my first ECU game with some friends this weekend. I'm not a graduate or anything, but we got field passes. I got to watch them lose double overtime from the field, but it's still pretty awesome. I had a great time.
$2.
Well, for the states, NC State and Ohio State, and not the Carolinas. So
NC State and the Ohio State.
the Ohio State.
Okay, super. Thanks, Charlie. Great. We have a couple of guests here today, I know. The first is coming for the second time. Leslie Oliver. You want to come up and reintroduce yourself briefly?
I'm Leslie Oliver. I'm with Rise Against Hunger, National Director of Development, and I'm eager to join your club. I'm halfway through the application. It's very intense. I am a former member of the Fort Worth Club of Rotary and served as secretary, district committee chairs, and all the things. So I'm excited to be here and to be officially a member soon.
And we have one of Jim and Kurt's colleagues here today. Miles, check to come up and introduce yourself, please. That's wired.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. As our your esteemed president, non-member. Instead, I work with Kurt Warner, Miles Wallace, fourth-year associate, Smith Anderson, lawyer, 2 blocks that way. With Jim, Lori Fuller, I know Randy, when you're doing, I do know Paul, and he's going to help me get here today. So I'm on the Courts Commission, the General Assembly, and to do a lot of leadership development stuff as well. Graduated from the Institute of Political Leadership this past spring, Leadership Triangle, and now I'm entering into Leadership Raleigh and Leadership North Carolina. And I'm also on the board of Active Good and also an advisor to the Department of Commerce and the City of Raleigh, and help band together doing this concert next month. So busy guy, but as I tell people, this is my kid because I'm a young single free agent. Unlike some of the players mentioned, I haven't signed a contract yet, so still posing around, and I'd love to give back and do a lot of good. And so that's what I dedicate myself to, and that's what brought me here. So thanks for having me. Thanks for watching.
Great, thank you. Yes, I know.
People connected to that. We have Ben here, who's part of the city club, corporate membership. So if you like to So I'll protect them and you'll be sure who are used to having this.
I'm standing in for Patrick today.
Okay, and,
Today's topic and,
and Ben, you're over here, some people want to see you. Why don't you go ahead and mention the event you're having next Saturday?
absolutely, yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Benjamin Lynn from City Club. I'm the food and beverage director, 2 blocks down the way as well in the Wells Fargo building. I'm here also to mention this Saturday, we're doing an event called Over the Edge. The building is hosting it. Really great cause with Special Olympics, North Carolina. We just about met our donation requirement. We have 2 jumpers, one of our members, repellers is more like it. 2 repellers, one is a member of ours named Amy Joyner. The other is me. So we're almost at our fundraising goal. I've got a couple of flyers. It's a QR code, $2 a head. We make it today. So thank you in advance. Really supporting a great cause for Special Olympics North Carolina. Thank you all for having me. Thanks.
We're always happy to support the city club, great memories, and we're still active with it. We're having our fundraiser there later next month. So next Saturday, if you can go to the lawn party and watch Ben and his colleague repel the Fargo building, more power to you, Ben.
Yeah.
I did want to mention one thing that Patty mentioned to me before the meeting. Some of you may know Lee Hudson, former district governor of 7710, and I just wanted to mention to keep him in your thoughts. Lee's wife just passed away. Her funeral, I think, is coming up this Saturday. But Lee, if you follow the Rotary newsletters and bulletins and magazines and whatnot, actually, Lee himself made it last month by being admitted to the Heart Plump Society, I think it's called, where you have donated in your history with Rotary at least $250,000 your own money to Rotary over the years. And Lee, I came to know him a bit through PETS training to be president and all. But anyway, it's sad news to keep Lee and Penny in the thoughts. We have upcoming meetings. Next week should be pretty interesting. We have Mr. Cuesta Zarco from Mexico speaking to us about state relations between Mexico and the United States. He's the consul general based here in Raleigh. We have a break. We have interesting talk about relationships between the Battle of Gettysburg and Oakwood Cemetery. But I'd like to, for all of you to think ahead as well to our meeting on October 24th, which will not be here. It will be at the North Carolina Museum of Art. If you'd like to invite a friend, spouse, somebody from your business or whatever to come along with you, it's we did this 3 or 4 years ago. Mary Moss, who just came in, arranged back then, and it gave me the idea to go back there. And they're having a special exhibit, Duncan Phillips collection from New York City. And we will have a talk on that and a tour of the exhibit along with a catered lunch museum. So it's a nice event to bring someone to, just because it's not the usual lunch, and to meet everybody in the club. So just keep that in mind as it's coming up. And Kurt.
I see folks, people, some time in Baptist Church at 2:00.
Okay, so Lee's wife's funeral at 2:00 is coming Saturday. I know Patty mentioned there was an RLI 1, 2, and 3 session for Discover for Saturday, which is canceled. So the people can attend that service if they want to. Thank you. Next, Tommy. Snowy neighbor time.
All right, that's nosy neighbor today. We've got a guy coming up who has a title that Tom Packer aspires to. His title is past president. Jim Dorsett, come on up. After we have So, when I came into the club, Jim was one of the early presidents, and really enjoyed his banter from the podium. If you haven't been here for this time, you haven't heard him spin the arm from the front, but he's excellent at it. And we've got a couple of questions for him, but first, Jim, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself, talk about, how long you've been in the club, what you do professionally, things like that. So
Thank you. Well, first I want to thank Tommy for giving me about as much advance notice as some of my partners have given me in the past, asking me to go to court. So, I'm Jim Dorsett. I am past president of the club, practice law at Smith Anderson in Raleigh. Kirk Warner and Miles Wobbleton with me at the firm, and Mary Moss' husband Bill is someone I work with on a regular basis. And we have others, I think, who are members. I joined when Kirk was president. Kirk inspired me to join the club, and then it was just great to meet so many of you. And to the service projects were really what I wanted to be more involved in. Used to serving on a lot of boards and sitting around conference tables. And so my first experience there was the stream cleanup. And I remember being with Judge Lucy Inman and Judge John Martin and picking up some amazing trash and debris around the stream bed. And I remember as I was leaving the area, the two young guys with nice cups of gourmet coffee walked by, and I heard one of them say to the other, "Man, I'm glad I don't have that guy's job." Just love being a member of this club for about a decade and getting to know all of you and doing some good service projects. I also learned to do plaster work at a Habitat house, it just I was really talented at that. So.
We're super glad to hear you have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
So that's good. Why don't you, Jim, why don't you tell us something that most people wouldn't know about you?
Okay, again, thank you for the notice, Tommy. When I was in college, I developed a sort of passion for learning about other cultures and other countries, and this sort of was a latent thing through law school. And then I was introduced to Surrey Roberts and by a mutual friend, and had lunch with Surrey, and he started telling me about his passion and interest for other countries and cultures and his travels around the world. So I planned a trip with a lot of input from Surrey and some others, and I traveled around the world, pure adventure, for 8 months after I got word I passed the bar exam. And so I sort of postponed my start at Smith Anderson, but I went to Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nepal. I hiked up to the Everest Base Camp, and I went to Thailand and Indonesia, and was on the 4th tour to Red China, which had just opened up after the death of Mao Zedong, and then Japan, where I was just settling in for a nice long stay when I got a cable from the law firm telling me I had 3 days to be in Raleigh, or I didn't have a job. So I did come back to Raleigh and start practicing law.
That is an excellent answer. I don't care how much time you get. There you go. And then the second piece, when did you narrowly escape some danger, and could you tell us about it?
Well, there have been a few, but one occurred on this trip where I was in Pakistan, and I took a long bus ride, and then I rented a bicycle and pedaled out to this remote place where there was a Buddhist, it was at the center of Buddhist civilization, many hundreds of years ago, that had been excavated, and I wanted to see it. But as I was seeing everything, preparing to leave, I noticed the sun was setting, and the sun went down. I found myself in a village, complete darkness, no paved roads, people coming up to me, speaking, looking at me, not so friendly always. And so I had to sort of trust someone who wanted to sell me some Buddha heads, and that supposedly had been, excavated, although they were nice fakes. I did buy them, and that got me a ride with a truck driver out of the danger zone back into Islamabad after a bus ride during the middle of the night, chickens and goats and things like that. So that was kind of a narrow escape there, I think.
That's a grateful ride. I've never been to Pakistan, but I can see how you might stand out after dark when you're there.
Yes,
So,
we're eating pre-dark.
yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you get a chance, make some time to be with Jim outside the meeting, get to know him. Jim was our president, but on top of that, he's just an awesome guy and a lot of fun to get to know. If you get the chance, get with him sometime. Jim, thank you for doing those and with us. We're happy to have you. Thank you, guys. Jim,
And you have a guest on Zoom.
Okay.
John Stewart would like to unmute. I think that.
Okay, good. Michelle Stewart, what do you do, Alfonso? Do we, can we get her on the screen or not? Or just audio?
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Hi, fantastic. Yes, it's my first time coming with you guys. It's a pleasure to be here and I look forward to continuing to learn more about your chapter.
Great, Michelle, we can see you on the screen now.
Excellent.
Your portrait. That's great. Can you remind us, what you do, where you're from? Just
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. I am in the local Triangle area. My home is in Fuquay Varina. I work continuously through Raleigh, Durham, and around the area. I'm a commercial realtor here in the Triangle. So all over.
Okay.
That's a little bit about what I do professionally.
Okay. That's great, Michelle. Thanks very much. We look forward to seeing you at one of our meetings too, in person, hopefully.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in. Everybody clap Michelle. Next, we'll go on to membership. If Harrison is in the Bahamas this week, he won the vacation for his wife, so he's taking advantage of that. And Paul is on just had a baby duty, vice chair of membership committee. So I will handle membership duties today. Just 1 second, I forget if we have a slide here or not. No, good. A couple things. One is this Wednesday at 5:30. Just a reminder, here's in the bulletin this morning that we have a service social at the Willard Bar at the top of the AC Hotel on 9 Glenwood Avenue. So please come to that and bring snacks for school kids. We've collected a lot of snacks for school kids this year, and I've been delivering them to the member at the Midtown Club that we work with, and they're very much appreciated by the teachers and students who we distribute those snacks to. But it should be fun. Should be beautiful, beautiful weather to have a great view of Raleigh. So it's on a Wednesday for those of you who can't make it on Thursday. So we mixed it up a bit for you, James. And then today is the way we do membership, as you know, is we have first reading and second reading. And today we're having a second reading for John Newby. So John, you want to come up for a moment? Doing this somewhat from memory, but all the members are introduced a couple of times to the members in person. And if you have any comments at all about John or anything about that, let us know by this week, because the board will take action to vote on him in the next few days. And John is an attorney at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Is that right? And
Yes,
he's here in Fargo, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And John has been here before, and you've met him, and he's sponsored by Charlie Upshaw. And I think that'll do it for your second reading. And next time we look forward to having you as a member. And thanks for coming today. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
On the service, Richard gave me permission. I think Richard made me on Zoom, and he gave me permission to just remind you about our upcoming service projects. Richard will be here again. We have some time before these, but we are having, as you saw, a service doubleheader on October 15th at the Step Up Ministry on Overland. They need help with some repair work to their headquarters and some garden work. And that's in the morning.
on that Saturday morning. Then in the afternoon, we have the Fall into Local Festival at Dix Park. And we've been a big supporter of the Dix Park Conservancy for years, especially Sarah and Cherry Reeves are very involved. And there's a link in the bulletin that went out this morning to sign up for that. There are hourly slots available, and you get free stuff if you sign up too, and work there in the afternoon, t-shirts and discounts on things. So those will be our service projects in mid-October that we're having. So keep those in mind. And next, we wanted to remind you, I don't know if either Carrie or Eric are online and wanted to say anything, but I'll go ahead and remind everybody about our fundraiser. And we're going to watch a couple of short videos. But we're having a fundraiser October 27th, 5:30 at the City Club to raise money for Rotary's effort to eradicate polio, the Polio Plus program, as well as, and we have James Salamanti here today to tell us briefly about the Gift of Life Foundation and introduce a video. And proceeds will also, a portion go to benefit our own foundation. But I thought you might like to hear from our new president, our new Rotary International president, Jennifer Jones, talking about Rotary's attempts to eradicate polio. So cue that up, Alfonso, just about a minute long.
Rotary family. When the history of polio eradication is written, Rotary will take a leading role in this massive, critical global effort. But even among heroes, there are greater heroes, and that's you, members of the Polio Plus Society. You have been steadfast advocates for the children of the world and the people who have devoted most resources, time, and attention to this effort. No words of thank you will ever suffice. The world's focus has returned to polio once more. People are scared. They're worried about the health and safety of their children. They wonder if their community is next. You know that if the polio virus exists anywhere, it threatens children everywhere. That's why you've taken up this fight for so long and with such vigor. Now, we have the world's attention, and this gives us a unique chance to bring everything we have to this effort and eradicate polio once and for all. I've been on the ground in Pakistan and have talked to the brave people, mostly women, putting in the hard work to vaccinate every remaining child. We have a strategy that's working, but it's demanding resources like nothing we've done before. It's critical that once more we raise $50 million to trigger the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation 2-to-1 match. Together, we can finish the job and give this amazing gift to the children of the world. Thank you for your amazing continuing generosity and for your dedication.
And James, do you want to come up and say a word about the Gift of Life Foundation?
Thank you. Thank you, President Tom. Gift of Life International is the #1 charity in the world helping children with congenital heart disease from emerging countries. I say emerging countries because that's the real key here. My specialty, or the area that I travel most to, is Central America, and I've seen firsthand where doctors are able to identify issues with the heart of these children, but literally shrug their shoulders because they can do nothing about it. Last year, Gift of Life International saved the lives of over 4,000 children around the world. We've helped over 40,000 since we started, and it grew out of Rotary. The images and the story in this 2-minute video will really sum it up for you.
Thank you, James.
1 in every 100 girls who child was born with a congenital heart disease, and 93% of those children are born in a country that can do nothing to treat them. I am Rob Raleigh, the CEO of Gift of Life International, and we are a nonprofit organization with our mission to develop sustainable pediatric cardiac programs and to empower doctors and nurses in their own countries to take care of their own children. There are times when certain parents break their heart. Recently in Romania, I met a mom, Andrew, with a little girl, Jessica, and she, by herself, took her daughter to 3 different hospitals and cleaned it for them to help her child. And the first 2, she was not successful. But the last one was during our trainings.
When she played the heart, it was very, very bad. I was very scared. I don't know what to do.
And the fact that you can help that mom realize the dream she had, taking care of her child. That's why it don't stop. That's why you keep on going to the next country, the next country. That's why you keep on asking people to help you, whether it is with their time or their money. Because you can save a child's life if you have the resources to do so. Every parent in every country who desperately needs cardiac care for their child should be given the opportunity for treatment and feel that joy of walking away with a healthy child into a brighter future.
Okay, thanks, James.
Thank you all.
So we will be approaching each of you in the next couple of weeks. And when you are approached for the fundraiser, please buy tickets. And we need silent auction items donated. We need sponsorships. So please give generously for these very timely and needy causes that need our support and money. Actually, into that just a second. Before I do that. No, that's a teaser. That's a teaser. But we did want to wish happy birthdays to Eric Larson this week, Braxton Wilson, and Tom Holden on October 1st, and anniversaries to our own Linda Monahan and Brian this week, and Paul and Vaughn have a very happy anniversary coming up this week along with their new baby. Let me go back, and this will be by way of introduction of our speaker today. I contacted our speaker today, Andy Allen, because I came across mention of a talk he gave about our alcohol distribution system, a retail system in North Carolina. And coming from California, when I moved here, it was very different. When I first started coming to North Carolina, the way that alcohol is sold and purchased here in the state. So I did a very unscientific survey last time I was out in California. You can see gas prices, of course, these California gas prices compared to ours. The median price of a home in San Francisco is $1.9 million. I know that from two of my little children who bought and tried to buy houses there. So we all know that California, especially the Bay Area, is much more expensive than North Carolina. So I went to a grocery store in California, equivalent of a Food Lion here. And on the left is a bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon. It's good bourbon, $27. Then I went to the local ABC store here, closest to us here in Lake County, and it was $33, so $6 more. So I have a question to our speaker: why does bourbon cost more here than in expensive Northern California? And then lastly, I took a picture in California of another nice bourbon, Buffalo Trace. And I thought I compared the price here, but when I got to the ABC store, they didn't have Buffalo Trace. Now, it's not like Happy Van Winkle bourbon. It's really rare, you can't find. And so I asked her, "Do you have Buffalo Trace?" And she said no. And then we got to talking. She said, "You're not going to find it here in Lake County because the distributor sells it to the county, and they offer the county Buffalo Trace, but only if the county bought some other unpopular brands of other alcohol drinks, other liquors to buy with it, and the county commission, I guess what it is, declined to make that deal." So Andy will fill us in on how this all happens. Now, of course, Andy does not work for the agency. Andy, by way of introduction, is president and general counsel of the North Carolina Retail Merchants Association. Andy came to that organization as general counsel a couple decades ago or so, and took on the additional role of president of the association in 2012. Andy has overall responsibility for leading the retail association and its 12 affiliate companies. And Andy is passionate about achieving the association's mission of promoting a positive legislative and regulatory environment for the retail industry in order to enhance members' opportunities for success. So with that, would you please welcome Andy Allen.
We need answers, quick as like that. We need answers now.
So I've had the opportunity with Kirk and Randy, from the Central Legislature, Scott Stroud in the back of all that, some classmate of mine. And so, before I start, let me say one other thing too. So I spoke at the Clayton Rotary Club about a month ago, but I had to be there at 6:45 in the morning. And I live in Wake Forest, so that's a haul from Wake Forest to Clayton at 6:45. So I appreciate lunchtime. It's a block and a half in my office, so thank you for that. I am reminded too, one thing, and I was saying to Miles earlier, I'm a lawyer and lobbyist, and he would say, was your family in that business or anything? And I'm reminded once I saw your upcoming meeting in Gettysburg and Oakwood Cemetery, and my father had the sort of unique job of we moved cemeteries. So we dug up cemeteries all over the state and country and moved them. And my father died 20 years ago this past Saturday and was under contract with the DOT. And so 20 years ago, next week, I had to hire a funeral director to go out what is now Pool Road, where they were building the bypass, and move 70 Confederate graves in the woods to Oakwood Cemetery. So they're out there. That was I had to hire a funeral director for about 2 or 3 days to do that. So not in the law legal world when I started. So much different. Makes a great cocktail possibly. But speaking of which, I'm Andy Allen. Our association was founded in 1902, so 120 years old. We represent the biggest of the big. So I represent Walmart and Amazon and Home Depot and Lowe's and those folks, but also one-stop operators. Pam Blondin, for those of you who know Deco Raleigh over here, is a member of mine. Page 158 books away Forest, Candy Shop in Lexington, people like that. So, but I do spend a lot of time in the alcohol space. And so, and we're going to talk about modernizing some of the ABC system, but we are sort of in a different movement of late. And you see some of those things, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So, what's wrong with the current system? And so we were talking a little bit about pricing and those sort of things earlier. North Carolina is one of the only 8 states that still control both the wholesale and the retail sale of spirits in the country. Little has changed in the 80 years since we have prohibition. Again, a monopoly system that you have currently in the state, why you can't find that bottle of Buffalo Trace. It's pretty inefficient. If you think about it, you can go buy a lot of things at the grocery store, but if you want to make that separate trip, you buy the ingredients for the Bloody Mary, but you got to go make another trip across town to buy the vodka for that Bloody Mary. And it really doesn't meet North Carolina's needs. As far as we're the 9th largest state in the country, but we have the 2nd lowest density of ABC stores in the country. I think only Ohio is less than North Carolina. So not very efficient system. So how do we get started on it? So the 18th Amendment enacted in 1919 starts prohibition, and we all know what a great success prohibition ended up being. We've seen enough gangster movies, from back in the 30s. So 21st Amendment's enacted in 1933 that ends prohibition. North Carolina and South Carolina were the only 2 that voted against ending prohibition. So that's where we sort of started. Prior to that, we were right there with Kentucky prior to prohibition. So the 21st Amendment gave states pretty wide latitude as to how to control alcohol. I know you got some really good lawyers in stores, other folks. It actually pretty much overrides the interstate commerce clause, and which is sort of an anomaly because interstate commerce clause for us geeky lawyer folks pretty much is really strong, except for there's been a couple of U.S. Supreme Court cases where they give more deference to the 21st Amendment than the interstate commerce clause. So what they did was they created what's called a 3-tier system, which is basically manufacturing. So think about the distiller, the winery, the brewery, the wholesaler, which is a distributor. Think about Long Beverage or Johnson Brothers in South Capitol Boulevard that distributes to the retail permittees, whether it's this restaurant or a grocery store or a convenience store, and then the retail permittee, which is those folks. So the way the system works generally, the manufacturer creates a franchise agreement with the wholesalers.
And the wholesale creates a brand, or can only, excuse me, the retailer can only buy from the wholesaler in that area. So whereas if you want to decide between a car, you can go to Fred Anderson Toyota or a different Toyota dealership. If you're a food line and you want to buy a Molson Coors product, you can only buy from Long Beverage in this area. If you want to buy Chateau Ste. Michelle wine as a retailer and carry it on your shelf, you can only buy from Johnson Brothers in this area. So they have a requirement to service all their accounts. But this was intended to deal with things like you had previously in London, which was the brewery owned all the pubs. And so they only put their stuff on tap. And so the thought was if you sort of split the three tiers, then you would have a situation where it would be better for consumer choice. Now, there's some things slanted towards probably the wholesaler side more than anything else. It's the only product that I know of that you take cash on the barrel. So when there's no terms, for those of you in acquisitions and things, when the product gets delivered to this store, they pay cash at that point in time. No, you get 14 days or a day or whatever, you pay cash. Can't return it if it's bad or it doesn't sell, you're stuck with it. So when you're at the grocery store, sometimes when you see a bottle of wine or a cart that's got a bunch of beer in it that's marked down, that's because they can't return it. They're stuck with it once they get it. And there's no quantity discounts. So if you buy 5 million cases of Bud Light a year, you get the same price as if you buy 12 cases of Bud Light a year. And that's meant to control the price point, which we'll get to in a minute. So I mentioned North Carolina is one of 17 states, controlled states. The other 33 are privately run in the United States. But we're the only controlled state where both the state and local governments are involved in the sale of alcohol. So most states that are controlled, the other 16, it's only the state of North Carolina or the state of government running the alcohol. So what you end up with is, again, some of the inefficiencies, you have 170 local boards. Some counties have multiple boards. Brunswick County, I think, has 13 local boards in their county. And you were wondering why there was inefficiency. You can't find it here, you can't find it there. It's approximately why. So they operate about 435 stores. They employ about 3,000 people. They just created 12 new local boards in the last 12 years. And again, you think about a county with 100 counties, we've got 170 localities running ABC system. And each one of them has a board and each one of them gets paid a salary. And so they make about 11% with that. But even with the monopoly, you have some boards that lose money, which is sort of hard to believe. So back to Tom's point, North Carolina collects the most public revenue per gallon of liquor sold, got the lowest alcohol outlet density and the second lowest adult per capita liquor consumption. There's your piece about Ohio, Virginia. But if you think about it, it makes little sense for us to be in the business of selling alcohol in the state, because optically, you can walk into Applebee's or this city restaurant or Gravy and buy a mixed drink from a 21-year-old bartender. And nobody blinks an eye about it. But we won't let the same 21-year-old bartender work in a grocery store and sell you the same exact product to go home. Logically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Some will say that it's a heavily regulated product and we need to control it more. Well, what I would say to you is the government doesn't sell tobacco, it doesn't sell vape cigarettes, it doesn't sell opioids, it doesn't sell OTC medication, it doesn't sell firearms, it doesn't sell fireworks. Very heavily regulated items. And so this is the only business in North Carolina, what's called the Olmstead Act, that prohibits state government or local government from competing against private business. This is really the only place in commerce that the government competes with private entities. So break down how what happens with the ABC, where the money goes, why Ohio is more expensive in North Carolina than in California. So it's priced uniformly throughout the state. So the ABC board in Southport can't have a different price than the one in Raleigh or the one in Wilmington. They have to be the same price across the board, no matter how efficient or inefficient they are. So in addition to that, you've got a markup formula that we're going to talk about in a minute. The markup formula funds the operations of these 170 local ABC boards. And if you sell to a mixed beverage permittee like City or Gravy, they have to add an additional $20. But what happens also is the reason these boards are so ingrained in our system is they are sometimes viewed as sort of the Santa Claus of the community. Because we're going to look at where they get their money in a minute. but they in turn buy a fire truck, or they donate to the Boys and Girls Club. But those 3 or 5 people on that board who get paid a salary also get to distribute all of the money. Which in our minds, I think it would be better served to have somebody like an elected county commissioner or elected person that's on the city council distributing that money rather than a political appointee in 170 million. You also, as I mentioned, have people again that lose money. Some of the boards, about a third of them, if I remember correctly, are not profit. So this is a pretty complicated chart, but this shows you all the add-ons from the place that that bottle of Buffalo Trace or whatever it may be, the left of the distillery, all the money that gets added on to that bottle before it hits the shelf. So the starting price of this bottle for a case is $150.27, 12 bottles. The starting price of that is $12.52. By the time that bottle hits the shelf in North Carolina with the bailment fees and the local board markup, they mark up 39.5%, which is a pretty good markup. Bailment fees, additional markups, warehouse fees, everything else, that bottle at the very end becomes $25.63. So that's all your inefficiencies, why that Maker Mark bottle in California is cheaper than the one in North Carolina. Just because sheer value of sheer amount of additional markups and things. Well, here's your percentage of where this goes. There's the distiller's price. The distiller's price is barely more than 50% of the cost of the good. Again, not a whole lot of products where you see that in the marketplace. So during COVID, we sort of saw the inefficiencies of North Carolina's ABC system. But let me say, I will say right now, and I saw him earlier today at the speech I gave a minute ago. Chairman Hank Bauer, the new chairman, is doing a really good job logistically fixing some of these. He came from a background of logistics, and he's doing a much better job of where we were. So you all saw this. You couldn't find certain brands. People, they looked at stores in other states. They drove to South Carolina, Tennessee, you name it. They turned to buying it online illegally. I have to tell my neighbors all the time, like, I got to follow Buffalo Trace online. And I'll say, that's illegal. Can't do that. They're not supposed to ship it to you. Do they? Yes, but not supposed to. Restaurants and bars could not find the products that they needed. I mean, we'd hear from restaurants who would be planning to have a certain drink, or there were certain types of tequila or other things in Mexican restaurants, for instance, they couldn't find the products they needed. Or they would place their order with the state and they'd say, I need this bottle of this, and they'd show up and they wouldn't have it. Some product is stuck in the warehouse. And Tom made the comment about buying certain items. I've talked to people who've been in the warehouse, and there's cases and cases of well-ordered bourbon in the warehouse at times, because the county didn't order enough for them to ship it all out, and they didn't know how to allocate it to what they had. Local,
Where is that? Where?
it's actually on.
Okay, let's go.
So local distilleries, this is another one of the inefficiencies, and I heard this morning, I spoke to the distillers conference this morning, that if you're in Charlotte, your distillery, you ship your product all the way to Raleigh for them to in turn ship your product all the way back to Charlotte for them to then order it from them. And you got to hope that Charlotte ABC board will put it in their system. So you got to convince those 170 boards. We talk about local, everybody local is really popular. We talk about local. And that's what one of the complaints these guys had this morning was they can't get their products on the ABC Commission shelf. Or if you do, it's very small allotment. But they're out there trying to get their product in all 170 stores individually, which is not easy because each individual county board of that 170 boards is making their own order. And then you have inconsistencies in what their stores their candidates have on the shelves. Does anybody know Shirley from Andrew? You know Shirley from Andrew. So Shirley was the former manager of the ABC store in Andrew, and somehow in Andrew, they had the best bourbon selection in the triangle. And Shirley could get you what you want. But you couldn't get the same product in the village, ABC did. I had friends that used to shop out at the one on New Bern Avenue because it was counter service. And nobody went, but they had a better bourbon selection sometimes than the one at the village district. Again, the system didn't make a whole lot of sense. But there was also these stories of lists that when this product came in, you got on a list to get it. So this is South Carolina, North Carolina. So up top is in right outside of Valentine in South Shaw, near South Park. On the right is Frugal McDougal's, which is about 1.5 miles in South Carolina. You see the tequila, the same day. This is from the Charlotte newspaper. Again,
Here's one from same ABC store, same day, and you see it proven with Google's in South Carolina, the Tito's, they're completely out. This was a South Carolina liquor store that capitalized on it. They flew banners over I-485, and we have liquor. Very good. Well stocked, just south of Mountain. So here's some recent steps that we've had happen. We had this legislation introduced in 2019 that would have privatized the system and would have gone to a per gallon tax on spirits, which would have leveled that out some. They would have gotten the local boards out of the business and put the county commissioners of the cities in charge. With that, about 160 and 170 would have generated more revenue and been better off getting out of the system. And you would have more money for substance abuse and mental health treatment under his bill, maintaining the ABC commission to issue the permit and discipline permit fees. This ran into, you can imagine, North Carolina is still the heart of a Bible Belt. The beer and wine wholesalers also don't like this very much because they don't form a whole lot of competition on the shelf for their product. But it was a good trial. We had a lot of legislators that said, if you get me over the revenue hump, I can do this, but I want to make sure I don't hurt my county and city. So where are the people in this? And if you look at the polling, these are the last two sets of polls statewide that I know of. I've seen some district-wide. But should you close the ABC stores and privatize, the Elon poll in 2019, 52 to 32 supported. High Point fit 47-34, same time period. Should you be able to sell the same thing rather than having a package store you have in other places? 56-31 for the Elon poll. I will tell you, I polled in some districts in the same time period in Wake Forest and Mooresville and some of those areas. It's up in the 80% in some of those areas. The problem you have with this is the places that really need the help, the Bladenboro, the Elizabethtown, the Graham County, they're very conservative and don't want this, but it would get them out of the business and probably make them money. The local boards that are doing really well, the Mecklenburg, the New Hanover, the Dare County, and the Moore County Pinehurst, and Wake County, where it's very popular because of the growth we've had in those areas. They probably don't need the financial help as much, but the polling is through the roof from their people that live there because they live somewhere else like California where you can walk into the store and buy alcohol. Now, I didn't want to make sure I got one more. Let me back up 1 second. I didn't want to say too, on the modernizing of alcohol. I've been doing this 25 years almost. And when I started on some of the alcohol issues, like allowing you to go wine tasting in a grocery store, or being able to buy a growler of beer or buy a growler of wine, or the Sunday sales piece that just happened, a few years ago, last about 10, or the new one that I worked on the last 2 years about the social district and let you walk around with an open container. The town allows you to do that. 2004, 2005, we would have 50 votes of the 120 against us in the House. This year, we ran a major omnibus alcohol bill with a number of things in it, and we had 7 no votes. And so you're seeing this changing dynamic in the thought process on some of these things of people didn't die in the streets when they allow people to have earlier Sunday sales, or when they let you do a wine tasting at the grocery store. Everything was okay as long as you stay within the lines. These are the changing demographics that you see happening. I think it's probably a matter of time before you see some of this change. The one we're working on right now, we talk about spirits. How many of you seen this product at High Noon? Has anybody seen that product?
Yes.
Okay, so High Noon is 7% alcohol, 6% alcohol roughly. It's spirit based. It's like a Truly or a White Claw. It's less than an IPA beer that you buy at the grocery store. There's the Jack Daniel's product. There's some other products. We were trying to get those into traditional retail. And what's happened is, back to the thing about buying product, what we hear is North Carolina is a very difficult business to do, or very difficult entity to do business with on the spirit side. And so that buying all of the volume of things, we're one of the last to get paid. You got to sell it into the state warehouse operated by the state and hope the county is order your product. Whereas if you sell directly to Southern Wine Spirits or Johnson Brothers Distributing, they'll distribute it and make sure it works. Whereas North Carolina has a very convoluted, inefficient system. So sometimes we don't get the product, we don't get the Buffalo Trace. It goes elsewhere. It goes to Kentucky or South Carolina or California or those places rather than more difficult customers.
just like any other business model. So we're working on the RTD piece, the high noon, then parts will get those in the stores. Met with about 100 and something legislators last year, making some progress. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm being under the town here. Yes, sir.
What happened to that bill in 2019? I think it didn't make out of community.
We didn't make it out of committee. We were trying to get it just on the table for a fiscal note and get it started, get the process started, and then we ran into COVID, basically. So, but part of this issue too is you've got a lot of folks that line up together, the Christian Action League and the beer and wine wholesalers who don't want anything to do with privatization. And you also have entrenched these 170 people or 170 boards full of local politically charged individuals in these counties that really don't want to change it. Yes, sir.
I might have theoretically received a 26-year-old bottle of scotch from a client.
A friend of yours, yeah.
Did somebody break the law?
If they ship it to you, technically, yes, but if it was a gift from a friend, you're probably okay. I mean, usually it's the ones that you're buying from wine.com or somebody like that, that's not supposed to be shipping it into the state of North Carolina. So that's what we say, is, unless it's a winery is legal to ship wine into the state.
This was a Texas client.
Right, anybody else, there's a company called B21, for instance, there's a case that just left, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, where they had sued to be able to ship wine into the state of North Carolina, alleging interstate commerce clause violations. Fourth Circuit ruled against B21. It's illegal to ship wine unless you were the winery under the Granholm decision from the U.S. Supreme Court. Yes, sir.
The salaried people on boards, are they elected or how are they hired?
They're appointed by the county commissioner. So, and you had a big scandal, for instance, down in New Hanover County a few years ago with that and what they're doing. Yes, sir, Kurt.
Are they loosening up some of the requirements for new distillers? Because I would love to see more distillers in North Carolina, because I know in Kentucky on the Bourbon Trail, it's now more popular, more people attend that than go to that.
So
Crazy.
So the distillers have, it has gotten more lenient. If you think about when they first became a distiller, you could go to the distillery and they could give you a tasting. But you couldn't buy a bottle from them. They'd have to say, go down the street and you hope they were selling it. Then they let you buy one bottle only, if you took a tour of the facility and you certified and took a tour. Then they've allowed you now to do where you don't have to take a tour. You can buy on Sunday, which is a big deal because the ABC stores are closed. And then the big crazy thing was they let them make you a drink with what they made. They could make you an old fashioned if they made bourbon. That was like the world was going to end. We're going to crack the windshield. So they are starting to move down the process. There's years it's sort of like with breweries. You got to have enough in-house traffic and you got to be able to get on the shelf. And there were I've had conversations with people that I've seen emails from distilleries asking every one of their friends to go to this one local ABC store and buy one bottle of it because we didn't meet our quota. And we think we're going to be able to meet it next month, but if we don't meet it this month, they're going to take us off the shelf. And so please tell your family and friends to go buy one bottle just to keep it on the shelf and keep it here. Yes, sir.
Sir, go ahead.
In the, what is the comparison between the number of people with alcoholism now versus 2020? Is there a move in our state government to what you're battling against, to move against the selling of alcohol in the state? Have we got to move like what went on against cigarettes, is that the battle you're fighting?
We're fighting a couple battles. We're over this economics. And if you were in the beer wine space, you don't want competition necessarily on the shelf. You don't want spirits necessarily on the shelf for making it easier to get. As far as alcoholism goes, I think you've got sort of a movement somewhat the other way in that you've got a situation where you've got bars, a bar opening over here and on P Street, still Purchase Street, it's got no alcohol, it's all mock cocktails. The younger generation is sort of moving away from a lot of the alcohol type that they're using. I think the other thing you're seeing though is nobody really knows what happened after COVID. Your alcohol use went up dramatically during COVID because people were drinking wine in the driveways and across the street from each other, just trying to do something to get outside or because their kids were driving nuts. And so I think you're seeing that still be unknown, but but I think there's more of a sense that these things aren't as bad as everybody's thinking. When we used to brown bag, and you remember when we used to be able to brown bag and take it back to the restaurant.
And before we thank Andy for our break time, so much material to work with, giving Andy our traditional cup. But please take this as a token of our appreciation and whatever you like, we know it won't be Buffalo Trace. But
Somebody brought me a bottle back from Kentucky last night.
thank you very much. All right, we'll conclude our meeting. Second, Andy might be around for a minute or two if you want to talk to him, but let's do the four-way test, please. Great stand of the things we think, say, and do. Is the truth. And all concerned. The middle of every mention. Be beneficial for all. Thank you, everybody.